Hello and welcome back to Invicta Sport live on KMTV. Now, we took a trip to a tennis club in Rochester which provides training to new and improving tennis players. It's competitive but includes fun and games too. Our reporter Yinka Owate took a swing and gave it a go.
Swing, toss, grip, serve. Tennis champs in Rochester can't go a week without heading to the court for an evening of training and games. Dan James Tennis, just within Thomas Aveling School, has provided options for people who want to learn the sport and improve their skills.
I used to play tennis when I was a lot younger, but I didn't play for probably a good 20 odd years. And then I tried to get back into it, and I've been playing for about a year and a half since I got back into it. Yeah, I think I'm struggling to get back to where I was when I was younger, but I'm getting there slowly.
Weekly trainings prepare the group for regional tournaments with other teams.
There's the Woodland Cups that we play. It's an annual event. We've been to two already, and there's one coming up this year. I think it comes up about September, October. So we're looking forward to that. And apart from that, we get invitations to play against each other.
Youngsters are not left out on this strive for a future with tennis.
Send the ball to their target, okay? So, right, boys and girls, all the cones are on there.
It's more about kind of like getting that base level right, teaching them, the hand-eye coordination of things. Might not even look like tennis at the beginning, but we're kind of sort of helping them get that hand-eye coordination and that physical literacy.
I'm seeing really good progress, and he looks forward to it every week. He's making friends and also learning about the game, the rules, the techniques, building his skills. It's fantastic.
On Mondays, female players have their own space to compete with one another and win points.
I've really improved a lot. I mean, I'm still not professional level, obviously, but I definitely have improved. From someone who's never really played tennis before, I can now hit the ball, which I'm told is quite important.
I even got on the racket myself.
Oh, no.
But there needs to be more improvement. Oh, there we go.
They may not be Serena Williams or Novak Djokovic, but these players do not joke with their racket game.
A lot of my players did start from a beginner level, and so they kind of all appreciate where they're coming from. So it's a very welcoming environment for that kind of player as well. And so, but the drills can be adapted and have been adapted over those times to kind of make sure that people are challenged appropriately for their skill level.
Get your tennis shoes ready, because whether you're a novice or a lost sheep in the pro world, you can add this sport to your list of things to do in Medway. Yinka Owate for KMTV in Rochester.
Well, I'm pleased to say we're now joined by Dan French, the head coach of Dan James Tennis in Rochester, joining me in the studio now. Thank you so much for coming in, Dan. Now, from watching that, a bit of questionable shots there. How good was Yinka at tennis?
Well, I'm going to say, there's no such thing as a bad student, I suppose.
We all need to learn these things, don't
Yeah,
we? No, I know she had fun doing it.
Yeah, she looked like she had a lot of fun.
Yeah, she did, definitely. Now, tell us, when did you set up this tennis club? Where did it come? Where did it come from? What was the driving force behind it?
Well, the driving force behind it was just, first of all, I set it up February 2021, so it's not been going on for that long. But it was quite simply, I just drove past the Thomas Aveling School one day. Every now and again, I'd see the progress of this construction that they were building, and they were building this canopy above some courts. So I got in contact with the school and I was like, "Are you going to do something with this?" And I was like, "Let's do an after-school club." And they were like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." Did that from September up to February, and then I opened up my adult classes and I went full capacity and did junior classes in the April 2021.
Amazing. So you do a whole range of classes. We could see from Yinka's report there, you had all different ages learning, all different abilities as well. That's something you really champion. But take us through the different classes you have.
Oh yeah, so it's in tennis it's kind of broken down into different colour groups based on their age. So we have the blue group, the red group, and so on and so forth, and basically it corresponds with the colour ball that they play with. So a red player will play with a much slower ball on a smaller court, and then as they get older, the dimensions will change and it will get bigger and progress to a bigger court.
Oh, Wow, so the ball itself slower, did you say?
Yeah, so they take the pressure out of the ball for the younger age. If you've got a young player who's not very tall, you want the ball to bounce a little bit lower for them as well, because you can imagine it shooting up above their head.
Yeah.
So.
And I suppose I've been watching Wimbledon, I was watching it when it was on, and you see the speed that they serve at. It's ridiculous. I suppose that's a bit daunting, but I didn't realise you could have different speeds of the balls. Do you think people are surprised by that?
I think so, maybe, just as some players develop. But yeah, it's very much down to, it's more about stage over age, really, and that's kind of what the LTA, the Lawn Tennis Association, they kind of sort of champion. Just trying to sort of make sure that people are placed where they can, appropriately play the game, and then once they're comfortable, it's much better to sort of get the techniques right and then progress them up to a faster ball, perhaps.
And how different is it playing on sort of the ground like this in Yinka's report and on grass or AstroTurf? Or correct me if I'm getting my terms wrong. What's the difference between these?
Oh no, your terms are absolutely fine. So.
I'm learning too. As Yinka's learning how to play, I'm learning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got to see it firsthand about a month ago. So I organised a tournament called Wimbledon. And
Brilliant.
We took our club over to another local grass court club, and we tried our hand at grass. And yeah, very different games. So particularly the ball's bounce is very unpredictable sometimes, a lot lower and a little bit faster as well. So, but it was nice to have that experience and play on grass as well. But the courts that we have over at Thomas Evelyn, they're all year round. So it allows people to play, for the whole year, all weatherproof. So that's why I chose that venue to sort of set the club up.
And the people you have attending the club, as we said before, they're of all different abilities, ages. Why is that so important to you, do you think, to get people in of all abilities and help them sort of learn and train?
I think it's massively important to me, just because I think there can sometimes be a little bit of a stereotype around tennis that it's not as accessible as other sports. So what I wanted it to be is like tennis for everybody. So, my approach to the whole thing is that you can be sort of flexible with your booking as well, so you don't have to pay weeks in advance and all that kind of thing. So people can just go onto my website and they can book on that way as well. But yeah, in terms of just making sure that everybody is included, I want it to be a very welcome environment. I've heard some stories in the past where perhaps some players have gone into a club and maybe they've not felt as welcomed. So that's the one thing that I try and make sure that I do the best I can. When someone walks in, you're part of us, and we want you to be there.
That's amazing. Now, it all builds up to some sort of competitive nature, some sort of competition. So do you play in sort of regional games, national games? How does it how does it work?
Well, we're quite a fledgling club, so we've only just got going. So we're not really in Kent Championships or anything like that. But that'll be something that I'll aspire to in the future. But we do little local competitions. So we've got one coming up next month in September called the Woodlands Cup, and that's been around for quite a long time. So I've played it a few times myself for other clubs, and it's quite cool now that I can put my own club in it. We did it the first time last year, and we're going back again this year. So usually that's held in Rochester, and so we'll put a little squad in there and we'll see how we do.
And what would you say, I suppose, a lot of what you do is training young people, those different stages, not ages, as you said. What is it that's the hardest thing to grasp with tennis? What do you see, or does it sort of change between player, or do you see sort of an overall thing that people take a long while to sort of get?
I think if I wanted to give a general teaching idea, what I've noticed over the last a few years or so. So I've been a coach for 5 years, but been running this club, since February 2021. But the main thing that I think a lot of people want to do is they want to get the racket right first, and then they're very interested in how to swing and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is they need to be in the right position to play the shots. They need to be on balance. So a lot of the work that we do is getting in the ready position, so they're ready for the incoming ball. Can they read the ball as well, and are they reacting to the ball? Because if they don't do those three things, then there's no point learning the shot itself. So you find that a lot of the times a player might be a little bit off balance, and then they start improvising their shot. We want to try and sort of get something that can routinely work over and over again. So it's about setting that base before you can then move on to the next thing. So I suppose that's the general point I could say that maybe is for everybody.
And we talked a bit earlier about the balls and the different sort of speeds and stuff. What about things like the rackets and the other equipment? Do the rackets change? Rackets for smaller people, for younger people, or do they actually change in the sort of grating they have? How much is in that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the younger the player is and the smaller they are as they're developing, you know, they will start off with like a 21-inch racket. Standard tennis racket for an adult is 27 inches long. So just as they're growing and they're developing, they will just start to get longer rackets, and it's more about comfort and feel. And I think the weight is quite important as well. You don't want a young kid having too heavy of a racket so that they cause themselves a mischief.
And through all of this, we can see your love for tennis, your love of sharing it with other people as well. But what about any other sports? Do you come from a sort of sports background? Do you enjoy other sports, playing other sports?
Yeah, do you know what, funny enough, I've not always been tennis, so I started playing tennis when I was about 11 years old, so I was always football, doing Sunday league, played for a little team called Black Lion Youth when I was younger, and that was, you know, my dedication. And then sort of, you know, I started playing tennis after that. I think when the pandemic hit, I wanted to try lots of different things as well. So I went a bit crazy, started trying like triathlons, and I bought myself a beach volleyball net and stuff. Just,
wow.
Yeah,
and the tennis was one that stuck?
Tennis stuck, yeah. And I mean, I love doing lots of different sports, but because tennis is now my 6 days a week and it's during leisure hours, you know, that's what I do. And, you know, it's very hard to fit the other sports in. So I'll probably go for a run or a cycle in the week, those kind of things. But tennis is pretty much where it's at the moment.
I'd definitely give the triathlon a miss if it was me. I'd stick to tennis. Dan, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story and your club with us as well.
You're welcome. Thank you, Abby. Take care.
That's full time on today's episode of Invicta Sport. But don't forget, if you play a sport in Kent and you're part of a community, part of it, please get in touch. See you soon.